Tom, welcome back. How are you?
Great to be with you, Hugh. Thank you for those kind words.
Well, I am very, very interested in the Renewing America website. The Washington Examiner has long been a favorite of people, but Restoring America, I'm sorry, it's Restoring America, is a new initiative. Tell us about Restoring America. I've already bookmarked it. I'm going to be checking it every morning to see what you put up there. Tell us about it.
Well, thank you for that. So the basic premise of Restoring America is to provide a intellectual, well-written series of articles, essentially defending traditional values of the United States in terms of freedom, the idea of communities, of families, of religious liberty, those principles that I think a lot of conservatives would naturally align behind, the expansion of opportunity versus perhaps some of the more, um, you know, varied interpretations of what justice and opportunity mean from the left. So it's both, I think, a defensive um, idea in terms of saying, no, these things are good. American values, centrally, even though our history has its darker moments, are inherently good. And also promoting new ideas on the front of kind of conservative thinking and again, just outlining the importance of those values to the nation's identity.
Now, Tom Rogan, you are in the tradition of Christopher Hitchens and Charles C.W. Cook, Brits educated in Britain who come to the Beltway and provide perspective that people perhaps who have been educated in the government schools of America don't have. Comes down to this, and I discussed this with Matt Continetti last week about his book, The Right. The Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the American military. These are the three legs of the stool. You need the Declaration, that's the apple of gold. You need the frame of silver, which is the Constitution, and you need the American military to defend both. What other essentials does Restoring America seek to hold up and underscore as really essential to the nature of our country?
Yeah, and for me, look, I'm actually a dual citizen. I grew up. My father, is American, and these values were very important in terms of my father's inculcation of my brothers and I when we were growing up. So we kind of, even though we were, across the Atlantic, got a kind of first-hand view of it. But I think Restoring America's critical elements, really beyond those three pillars that you, I think, rightly identify. We think about religious liberty. We think about the opportunity of people to speak freely, debate freely, do so in a civil way instead of being shut down. The idea of, more balance in the media, things that essentially we want to be a place really at Restoring America where people can come and, even if they disagree with a particular article, be provoked to think about an issue, but also realize that a lot of this stuff is quite basic, right? That the foundational principles of the United States have endured and are foundational because, in the end, they make a lot of sense in enabling people across the country to pursue, happiness, to live better lives, and it's really about just making clear that a lot of the stuff that we're hearing, quite frankly, from the left, is not in alignment with, I think, what most Americans see as in their better interest.
Tom Rogan, I don't know if you saw Elon Musk's tweet over the weekend where he used a little graph, left and right, and he pointed out the left has gone way left and the right has stayed pretty much where it is. And as a result, he's become more conservative simply because the window moved. Do you agree with that assessment in the last 20 years that the window of what is on the table for discussion in America has radically shifted to the left?
I think when you see, especially the left's, I think, penchant for shutting down debate, for really changing the contours of what is acceptable, and I think the most striking example of this we've seen recently is the appointment of this disinformation office at the DHS. I mean, on what planet is there no understanding of history in the Constitution that the United States government should not be telling people what is information, disinformation, especially in the context that people running that program are some of the same that have said things like the Hunter Biden laptop, etc., are disinformation, which turn out, of course, to be the exact opposite. And so I think in that idea of the left's tolerance for dialogue, I think has clearly shifted. And I think as much as there are some concerns on the right with that, what's quite striking is the degree to which that tolerance for debate has shifted at the most establishment, formal levels of political media, business power.
I couldn't agree with you more. In fact, I'm going to ask you a question that I think I know the answer to, but I don't know. I don't want people to think I'm making this up. Were you at the White House Correspondents Association dinner on Saturday night?
I was not. No.
Okay.
No.
And I wasn't either. I wasn't invited. I went 6 years ago and said, this is the regime. This is the gathering in of the overclass. And I'm using that advisedly. It's just the permanent government. I don't think it's a deep state like Turkey has or like Russia has. I think it's an overclass. And they get together once a year and they celebrate their overclassness. And it's not very classy, but it is dominant. You did not hear much about the founding values that you would see held up at Restoring America. So my question is, who is going to write for Restoring America? Because you can't, to go to that dinner is almost to take you off of Tom Rogan's radar, I think.
Well, so, obviously, I think one of the issues here, people like Phil Wegman, our Examiner writers, of course, there's some great reporters, but that groupthink element, I think, look at the White House press briefing room, right, that it does pervade. So Restoring America, it is a work in progress. What we want to do is just build up some of the top thinkers in, conservative thought, both on the kind of think tank side, but in media. We've had politicians already. Senator Rubio has written for us. Andy McCarthy, I hope, is going to be starting writing for us. Deborah So on some of the social policy areas. John Bolton's done a piece. So really what we want to do is just trying to attract these thinkers and say to them, one of my key pitches is, I can pay people to do it, which they deserve for their time. And secondly, I'm not going to edit you, and my colleagues are not going to edit you excessively. We want you to make a robust argument and feel free to kind of run with it. Again, because what is the central plank of Restoring America as idea? It's, free debate, dialogue, discussion, getting the best ideas out there and, seeing which ones, grab hold of people's hearts and minds.
So I want people to bookmark Restoring America. If you simply go to DC Examiner and find, or go to Tom R. Tweets, what's the easiest way to bookmark Restoring America, Tom?
Yeah, so thank you for that. So the best way is to go to the Washington Examiner website, and then there's at the top, about just off the center to the right, at the top of the page, you'll see a Restoring America tab, and just click on that, and that'll take you right there, and the various sections you can go through, each identified in terms of different areas of public policy. And it's that simple, and it's a nice, clean website, no ads, and, we just want to make it a great user experience.
I noticed that. There are no pop-ups. The great bane of doing anything on conservative websites is they have to pay for themselves, right? So they have pop-up ads all the time, and I saw Restoring America was not that. How often are you updating content at Restoring America?
So we're updating every day, as we get new pieces in there, we're putting them up. With this carousel at the top, which kind of outlines, 4 pieces that, we think is sort of driving a bit of the coverage on the site each day. And so it's a very regularly updated website, and we're aiming for, at least 20 new fresh pieces getting up there every day.
Oh my gosh, that's terrific. Restoring America is over at DC Examiner, at Washington Examiner. Now, Tom, I am a big believer in holding up younger people. You're one of the younger people, but there are lots of people who are under 40, like Charles C.W. Cook at the National Review, Guy Benson, Mary Catherine Ham. The conservative movement has to regenerate from George William F. Buckley, and I dare say myself. I'm 66, right? I can't keep doing this forever, and I don't plan on it. So are you biased towards younger voices, and how do you vet them for credibility?
That's a fantastic question. So I think, as we build in, I want both, right? I want to hit all the different sections, because then we have both experience and that kind of youthful creativity. But the idea of vetting really, I suppose, we have a writer today. We'll have Kelly Neidert, who was a college student who was almost physically attacked, actually, frankly, was physically attacked for trying to hold an event on her campus. It's a question of engaging, right? Emailing, talking on the phone, seeing the links to the profile, and sometimes it's you've got to roll the dice because this isn't someone who has written somewhere before, but ultimately that's the way it has to go.
Tom Rogan, tell me the genesis of the project. I mean, whose brainchild was it, and how did it come to fruition?
So I think ultimately it was a part of a discussion between our editor-in-chief, Hugo Gurdon, and some of the Clarity Media, which is the sort of ownership of Washington Examiner out in Colorado, just thinking, what on that kind of opinion, thought, and in terms of, we do put news stories up that have a relevance to restoring America, even if they are news stories first. How can the Washington Examiner essentially try and engage in this idea space and both try and rebut some of the orthodoxy of the new left, but also show, look, conservatism has traditionally found a lot of support, not because it's populist and people are just like waving flags, but because the flags waving means something deeper, and these ideas mean something. Freedom matters to people, and trying to flesh out some of the intellectual arguments there, at whether that's about tax policy, criminal justice, foreign policy, obviously America's leadership in the world, once again being proven as critical. These various elements, again, it's about just making sure that we're out there engaged in the debate. Otherwise, the debate, frankly, doesn't have the kind of balance that it needs.
Vigor. It needs vigor. And I go back
Exactly.
to, and I'll close here. Henry Kissinger has a new book out. I got the advanced copy of it. He writes a lot about 1968 when America's elites gave up on the war they started, Vietnam, and the crash down that happened. And it took renewal, and it took 10 years, Tom Rogan. Is the Examiner committed? This can't just be a flash in the... It's just got to stick until it spreads like kudzu across the United States. Restoring America is the project. How is the commitment real and firm?
It's absolutely real and firm, and this is a long-term thing that I think I'm highly confident I am not going to be the sole person, or Kaylee McGee, who's an excellent writer and editor who works with me. This will go long beyond us, and certainly every day Hugo Gurdon is calling me into his office to say, right, what are we doing? What about this? Let's push it.
Yeah,
So,
faster and more, Tom. Faster and more. I appreciate your comeback and update me. Tom Rogan. Follow him on Twitter at Tom R. Tweet.